Hello, I'm welcoming you in SmartBear Talks, and today we're continue talking about the major mistakes when you need to avoid when you're creating API load tests. During the previous video, we discussed the necessity of including load testing scenarios into a business process, and this is the second video of the series. And today we're going to talk about the virtual users and why virtual users are not real users. And Damion White from WiseClouds, a colleague of Robert Schneider, will help us understand this topic better today. Hi, Damion. How are you today?
Hi, Tatiana. I'm doing very well. I'm very excited to be here. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. So, please give us the understanding, give us the idea what we need to pay attention when we're talking about virtual users.
Absolutely. So, as you led into this, you hit the nail right on the head, mentioning that you need to have a strategic plan for load and UI, API load tests built into your app development business processes. A big part of that is understanding and ensuring that the user profiles or the actions that your simulated users take in any testing environment accurately depict what happens in a real world use case. So, for example, many times we don't have good connection or our business units, lines of business exist in silos. And it becomes difficult for development teams to get access to accurate user data that will instruct how we architect performance and load testing. However, it's very, very important that we understand anticipated user metrics and how users behave in an application, or else we run the risk of overshooting or underestimating what the actual load or stress that will be put upon an application might amount to in the real world.
Do you mean that we need to pay attention that we need to have some delays, some predefined delays, because when we set up virtual users, those virtual users they can just access an API during a tiny amount of time in milliseconds or whatever, but it's practically impossible that in real situation real users will get access to your API so fast during this amount of time. So, and that's why I suppose there should be some delays in order to like simulate.
You couldn't be more correct. And the way we in the load testing world refer to those delays that you mentioned is we call those think times. So imagine any time that you access a web or desktop application that involves completing some activity or various numbers of activities. You will often stop intermittently. You may get up and go grab a donut or a cup of coffee. The phone may ring. Whatever the case may be, real users in the real world don't just simply bang on the APIs or breeze through the user interface elements in, very much to your point, a matter of milliseconds. So it becomes the business of our data analysts, our telemetry folks, and our app insights people to deliver what those think times ultimately amount to. And it is oftentimes something that is not available. Think about a e-commerce company or a retail business that wants to get into e-commerce. If you don't have any means with which to anticipate user traffic before embarking upon a app development process that involves that, it becomes very hard to calibrate those virtual users. And in many cases, we end up producing or architecting load tests that are orders of magnitude greater in terms of the amount of traffic that we end up passing through in concurrent virtual users, because everything is happening so fast and in a condensed manner that it doesn't actually reflect what a real user is going to do. And that's problematic for a number of reasons. Number one, it overstresses the application. It creates false negatives in terms of test failures. But conversely, it also runs the risk of not exposing those areas where there may be holes. If, for example, there's a bottleneck where users tend to take a larger amount of think time and then return to, i.e., for example, checking out of a cart. If there was a number of elements that directed us to continue shopping in an e-commerce setting, but we did not understand how users typically behaved once prompted to take those steps in their journey. It becomes difficult to simulate that in a load test, and those difficulties translate to apps that don't perform well in the real world upon release and/or extended development processes.
Okay, great. Thanks for this explanation. Thanks a lot. And this was the second mistake you need to avoid when doing API load tests. So stay tuned. We will continue posting more mistakes you need to avoid. Thank you, Damion, for this explanation.
It's absolutely been a real pleasure. Thank you for having me, Tatiana. I look forward to our next session.